Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and since 2010, I've run the Songwriters on Process website, where you can find more than 200 conversations with songwriters about the creative process. I'm not here to talk about tour stories, band drama, how a band got its name, or favorite foods. My goal is to treat songwriters as writers, plain and simple. This is an intelligent conversation about the writing process between two writers. And today's interview is with Bardo Martinez of Chicano Batman. So this is an interview we did back in the end of July of 2021, and I'm a huge Chicano Batman fan. Love all of their music, and I just loved this interview. Bardo Martinez is filled with energy. He is just always firing on all cylinders. And so it was a very entertaining interview, and so entertaining, in fact, you can actually see the video version of it on the Songwriters on Process YouTube channel. So check it out there as well. But he is, in his words, the supreme doodler. And he told me if I'm drawing a lot, I'm writing a lot. Those two processes are closely connected. I just can't imagine a moment in his day when he's not creating. He's always thinking of the next song. He might be running, longboarding, sitting under a tree, or even reading to his two young kids. It doesn't matter. There's a song in that head. I'm pretty sure he told me during this interview that as he's reading to his kids, he's still thinking about song ideas. So he told me, I think also that in his first show, it was a solo show that he did, I think back in July, his first solo show after the first quarantine. He had to rush home afterwards to start writing down all those ideas that were running through his head as he was playing. So you'll hear it in his voice. You'll see it if you watch the video. Just always thinking about songwriting and always thinking about creating. So anyway, with that, my interview with Bardo Martinez of Chicano Batman.
All right. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So the first thing I always like to start with is, how much writing are you doing outside of songwriting, whether it's, journal writing, anything like that? I do find that songwriters, most of them tend to do other types of writing, but is that way with you? Do you do other types of writing?
Lately, not so much. I come from that background. When I was in high school, there was a certain period when I was probably like 17 or something like that, where I was just an angsty, just dealing with being in high school, right? Just angsty teenager. And that was my way of just getting it all out. I had a notebook and I would fill it. I would literally fill the pages with stuff, just like free writing type of stuff. And I was listening to a lot of music at that time. A lot of Beatles stuff, a lot of everything. And it was a good time for just developing, I think.
Has being a parent made you more disciplined writer because I've only got an hour, 90 minutes, 30 minutes, so I've got to get it done then?
Man, I just finished an album, and I've been putting out the album. So literally I packed like 100 records in the course of like a week. That's all I did.
Yeah.
So when I put the kids to bed, I just packed up the records. It's self-release, self-produced thing, and so I just did it myself. So that it made me disciplined in the sense that, yes, I'm more disciplined because I feel like, I was telling some of my friends, who are younger than me, band members for my solo stuff. We were just eating sushi before our show on Friday. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm a lot more disciplined now, but just because I have to be, I'm not one of those people that really champion the being a disciplinary style person. That's not really me, but it's just so necessary for you to do what you want to do and to become, to fulfill your artistry and to fulfill all the things you got to do. Now that's literally just what I had to do in the last, like get my posts ready before I put them out in the morning when I'm releasing a new song, or, all those little tiny details in the modern process of releasing music.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I've been most busy with. Also rehearsing. I rehearsed a new band, literally probably like We probably rehearsed like 10 times for the show, and they killed it. It was so fun. Friday was such an amazing show. The record came out on Friday,
Yeah.
so it was I'm very happy with everything that happened with the release. Yeah.
Do you feel it's important to create in some fashion every day, or do you really kind of wait and sit back for those ideas to come to you?
Yeah, yeah. I think I've been waiting just because, like I said, I've been doing all these menial tasks.
Yeah.
And so I literally just haven't had the time to jump in the studio. There was a small time where I was like pulling up some files and just trying to write to it, but mostly just coming up with melodies. It's interesting because I feel like I've in my creative process with Chicano Batman specifically, or just with Chicano Batman. Around that time in my life, in my 20s, I wrote a lot of songs. Like, between me being, I mean, in that time period, and it just came to me. Music would just come to me. Songs would just come all the time, every day, and I would just write. I'd be writing songs constantly, and I feel like one of the reasons why I have a solo project is because, a band can only produce so much, right? And also, like, I'm just the type of person who's just very tenacious with whatever I have in my head. And if I feel it's a great idea, I want to make sure that it sees the light of day. But now, as you know, there's so many things that just don't make it just because, human effort is, you know, limited. Energy is limited. Um, but last night, for example, going back to, the process, in me doing all these menial tasks, in me, rehearsing a band, in me playing a show, I feel like something was unlocked. I kept on
Hmm.
thinking that last night. Like I couldn't help but to feel something intense because the show was amazing on Friday. It was probably like 200 some people in a small room, and there was mosh pits going on, and it was just like I hadn't played a show in years,
Yeah.
right? And I was going every like the I played the record, right? So the record is very it has it ebbs and flows, right? Different types of energies, different types of genres. So there's some songs the super hip hop, and in the case of a live show, it was really intense because my drummer is strong and he was like really dropping in it. And then we have some like kind of indie rock kind of vibes, upper tempo, and I threw some more upper tempo songs that are unreleased in the middle of the set to intentionally kind of provoke this kind of mosh pit thing. I mean, that was very intentional, and it happened. I threw myself in the crowd, and mosh pit just went off. So. So it was very, I had got a lot of love from people after the show, in the show, after the show. It was fucking perfect. So I you don't realize how important like a live show is, when unless you go through a long period of not having any shows, right? Obviously. And then I realized to myself, I really something unlocked, like something
Hmm.
new unlocked, and also because this was like my this was I've done a bunch of solo shows over the years, but this show was special because it was literally an album release. I have a record out. The record came out that morning. The vinyl is out. The music, people could listen to the music. So obviously that's a big difference. And I really felt the love from people. Like, we love this track. We love this other track. And all that kind of energy just really inspired. Like I can't really put it to words, but it's like super, like I said, I feel like it unlocks something in me, you know? Um, and it really set me really. I'm just super creative right now. There's so many ideas in my head. I woke up in the morning, I came up with the hook, like the hook was already there.
Wow.
I rushed to my phone. I was coming up with the chorus idea as I was rushing to my phone, and I recorded it like.
Hmm. Do you have a ritual when you tend to get your best writing done? You know, time of day, place. Like I have a favorite chair I like to write in.
Yeah.
Certain things you have to have with you. To me, that inspires confidence. Like it probably doesn't mean anything, but I know that if it's happened there before, that at least somewhere gives me a better shot of thinking it might happen again. So do you have some kind of ritual where you feel like, all right, I need these things. I've got to be in this place or stuff like that?
I feel like just my life has changed so much in the last few years, you know. Yeah, with the having two little kids, that it's like, no, I don't have anything like that because like I write songs on my phone, you know, just
Yeah.
on my notes when I'm like recording something on the stereo, like on the whatever tune. So I write music there and come up with lyrics. Or I just have my notepad somewhere random and I just start coming up. I just write on the notepad and the verses come and the chorus comes. I feel like I've changed a lot over the years. I would say I feel like I'm not going to say I'm less poetic now, right? But I want to say that I was super into poetry back in the day where like metaphors and, all the different literary terms that you could think of were in my head, you know. I feel they still come out, like when the alliteration, right? Super, simply,
Right.
swaying, you know. Anyways, I still rock like that, but I feel like, anyways, in the past, I was super into having very complex structures within the writing. Now I feel like I just need simplicity. I need to deliver. It's more about, I feel like I do a lot more with my voice than when I started. So, like, I could just do A, B, A, B, rhyming scheme, and I'm good. Like it's all good. It doesn't have to be super anything. The energy that I put into the vocal, that's just like the tools that I'm using to put into the energy that I'm tracking the song with, that people are gonna feel because I'm expressing myself in a certain way with my vocal tone, with the delivery, with the energy of the music. So I feel like I'm becoming and trying to become more intentional with the way everything is recorded and produced so that the words just come out at you. So the words just hit, simple words, simple poetic things, but just bam, chorus, bam, Um, but at the same time, I'm always going to be weird with it because I think I'm a pretty weird dude.
Do you self-correct for your process? Like again, you think, okay, you know, that didn't work last time. I guess, how often are you reevaluating like that part of your process, thinking, yeah, that didn't work this time. Let me try something else.
All the time,
Yeah.
all the time. And
With what kind of stuff are you doing that with?
with Pro Tools, just
Yeah.
like, for example, I record my vocals and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work, or this line didn't work because it's too wordy, or that sounds, you know, uh, I spoke Spanish first, right, as a kid, so English is a second language to me. So one thing that I've been noticing within popular music as a whole, especially now that I'm trying to make popular music, whatever, pop or indie stuff. I like a lot of that type of music, modern music or whatever, and or I'm inspired by it and I'm trying to make music like that. There's a lot of people who, have the English kind of syntax, kind of coolness all up in their vibe already. You know what I mean? And I feel like I'm learning that, and it's like navigating that and
Hmm.
always hearing, whatever, So it's interesting, but it's a big part of why certain people have more appeal.
But lyrics, I mean, you can kind of write lyrics anywhere. Lyrics, you don't have to, there's not a certain place you like to be. Kind of, you feel like, oh, yeah, it's happened here before. Maybe it'll happen here again.
Yeah, well, you know what? Look, I'm kind of like a nature guy. I love to be,
Yeah.
was surrounded by parks in my neighborhood growing up, and in high school, I would write a lot just in nature, pen and paper, next to a tree, on a tree, you know. So yeah, I love to be outside. It's like period. I love to be outside. But like I said, it's two kids.
Right,
You
right,
just
right.
wherever I'm at, it doesn't matter. I could be in the car. I could be, you know, the kids are asleep in the car. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, do you notice a difference? Because I think you mentioned the phone. but you also mentioned, I think, pen and paper. Do you do most of your lyric writing on your phone, or are you a pen and paper person?
I love writing. I love pen and paper because like I love writing like Venn diagrams and just kind of like I do stuff like that where it's like, I use the different tools that are provided to you when you're writing an essay, to write a song, right?
Yeah.
And or just I basically like do the circle and then the spider chart thing, bubble
Hmm.
chart. I use that because I'm like, well, I want to say this, but I want to say this and that, and this is related to this and that and this and that, and somehow that will help me create a dope line. I haven't done that in a while, but I love doing that, and it really inspires like some deep stuff. Like crazy connections.
I've
It's
heard
exciting
that from,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I've heard that. I interviewed Daniel Lanois, the producer, a couple months ago, and he told me how, he produced U2 and, bunch of various artists. And he told me how he does all of his lyric writing, I think on an 18 by 22 piece of art paper.
Oh
And
wow.
there's arrows and there's circles and there's thought
Yeah.
bubbles. And his whole point is that it's
Wow.
not linear at all. Like it
Yeah.
looks stuff all over the place. That sounds like what you're doing. Your writing process isn't really linear then, is that right?
No, not linear. I mean, no, it's not linear at all. Like I feel like my mind is I make a lot of connections to everything. And when I say you in a song, it could mean a lot of different things. At least, I really try to put it in that context because it allows me to like flourish out and not make things obvious and not, you know what I mean? Because there's so many, because music is also so jaded, right? So it's just like, well,
Mhm.
let me craft something here that speaks to many different things or not. Sometimes I'm super blunt too. So it just depends on the mood, I guess. But I love that idea of getting a bigger sheet of paper. That's
Yeah.
inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big piece and he
Yeah.
draws, it's a mess. But so then do you mix it? I guess if you have all these lines and things that go over the page, are you constantly rearranging it, saying, maybe this goes here? Note that doesn't work. I'll try this. Like, how does that? I'm fascinated by how that comes together for you. All those words all over the place. How do you eventually get to lyrics? Are you just moving words around all the time and see how well they fit?
Sometimes it comes to that, right? Like, right, okay, so like all the bubbles will just lead you to a thought and idea, and then obviously you just write a sentence, right?
Yeah.
And then, but then you're like, oh, well, that doesn't work. But then you have that bubble sheet that has all these words on it, so you could just replace one of the words and just fit it in,
I
right?
love it.
So, yeah, so it's very, very helpful. It's like doing your work on like you're showing your work in a math problem.
Right. Oh boy, those memories or nightmares, I should say.
Totally. That's why we're
So
English. We're English
exactly,
majors.
exactly. Oh yeah. Um, so do you have tons of discarded ideas that you go back to occasionally? Like you find you're in a rut, or maybe you're looking for something, or all those discarded ideas somewhere where you can pull them up and say, maybe I'll try this. It didn't work 5 years ago, but maybe it'll work now.
I haven't done that so much. I have like probably like 12 notebooks that I've had over the years that they're just kind of stashed away out there. And I mostly look at them and just like feel nostalgic. I look back, I'm like, oh, I'm also like you know, I've been drawing since I was 3. Like I've done a lot of the design stuff for Chicano Batman over the years. And I like to draw. Like I spent my whole career, like literally school career, all the way up to the end, just like drawing. I would get bored in class, and I'm talking about being like 25, right? My master's study class, like drawing stuff. Like I'm the supreme doodler, or I should say a supreme doodler. And yeah, man, I just trying to do music. I'm just an artist at the end of the day. So so that's also very inspirational to me. Like just the whole
Yeah.
visual, helps me imagine all kinds of different things with the writing and or brings a mood to me that I want to convey. I guess that's more what it's about for me, right? Like what mood am I in? How am I
Hmm.
feeling? And obviously, a drawing can inspire that or put you in a mood or help express a mood. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's about self-expression, right? Writing is. So, so yeah, all these different tools help, help out.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you use drawing sometimes as a way to get inspired to write songs.
Most definitely. Yeah. I guess over the years, yes. Like I say, it's like I'll just start like just moving my hand around the paper and, drawing geometric patterns and doing this or that. And then the lyrics will be on the right hand side of the drawing.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It just
yeah.
happens all at once. I can't
Ah,
tell
oh,
you
okay.
that, that they're related in some way, but they are because now that I think of it, they are because I would do it in the same session. Like you just do it all in one breath while you're sitting there, right? If you're hanging out in a classroom or I'm over here, on a bus or something on the way to the venue, I'm drawing something and then I'll start writing something next to
Hmm.
it, you know?
I would think they've got to
Yeah.
be connected in some way.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. One, I find that songwriters are very particular with the types of pens and the types of paper. I'm talking brand of pen or color of ink, and they can only write with those. How important is that to you?
Yeah, I'd rather have a pen. I really like painting markers right now.
Mm.
Um, I really do like, I'm not trying to create an ad, but those fancy notebooks, what are they called again?
Oh,
The
moleskin.
I love the Moleskines. They
You
they
do.
do inspire me. I do like the texture of it. And but lately, for example, I've just been drawing in it, you know, and somehow, like I said, that for in my mind, both are really connected. If I'm drawing a lot, I'm gonna start writing a lot.
Hmm.
If I'm drawing a lot and doodling, somehow that sparks something in me where I wanna get to my notebook, and then maybe that's what I need. Like like we had our kid in April of last year, so it's been a really busy time.
I had an interview last week with a couple of songwriters, and this is a common theme that they really want to challenge that myth that depression or anxiety is fruitful for inspiration. I mean, this idea that the tortured artist myth, basically, like,
Right.
If you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you just are really down, that's a great place to write from. And most songwriters I've talked to, I think that's the public myth, but most songwriters say absolutely not. Like, if you're in that frame of mind where you're in a funk or you're depressed or you're anxious, that is not a good place to create. So yeah, how do you feel about that? Is that a good place for you to create, or do you feel like, no, that's you need distance? Like Hemingway always said, he needed distance from a place to be able to write about it. He couldn't write about Paris when he was in Paris. So I'm curious your thoughts on that when it comes to emotions, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like when I started going back to maybe to tie something in here with high school, being a high school kid, just not fitting in, you know, taking the bus for the first time to like, it was like into this like metropolis of like 1,000 kids. Like I would walk around squinting because I didn't know what the fuck was going on, you know? And yeah, I mean, it took me years, I think, to process that, or maybe a few. I didn't start writing heavily until I was a junior, so maybe yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
I wasn't writing a lot at the beginning, but at a certain point, maybe once I was listening to like my mind right now connects to like John Lennon's greatest hits, you know,
Mm-hmm.
listening to John Lennon's greatest hits on my dad's bed in his room on his little like little boombox thing. Put the CD in, play it, and just I would zone out. Like I would. It was akin to like being on psychedelics, but I didn't smoke weed until I was like out of high school. I didn't drink. I was a good kid, so there I was listening to that stuff, and it definitely helped me. Like hearing the catharsis in like all these different writers, right? These artists, especially somebody like John Lennon, helped me like pick up a pad and just feel it. I was filled with angst. I was full of rage. I became like politically conscious really young too. I heard KPFK. I was on, KPFK radio is like a progressive radio station, and the first thing that I remember hearing, I turned on the radio station one Sunday morning, was like a special on how Chevron exploits the resources of the Nigerian people. It was like a series done by Amy Goodman, and it blew me the fuck away. I was like, how, why, And it kind of just sent me down this rabbit hole. I read Howard Zinn, I read Chomsky. I had this anarchist friend named Justin Shea that let me borrow all these books, and I was reading all that stuff. I read Che Guevara. I read about the EZLN thing, in Mexico, and so I was all this shit really just made me angry and mad. It really made me really, really mad, and it made sense with everything that I had experienced just growing up in a suburban city here in Los Angeles, right? I grew up in La Mirada, California, an all-American city. And like our side of the neighborhood was, in the 90s there was, some gang violence, it wasn't as crazy as it was in LA, but it was the 90s. And it was obvious if you were, the drawings are the lines were pretty clear. Like, hey, you're either you're Mexican or you're a white boy. You're a skater, or whatever. Because the other side of the city was more like suburban, and there was like white picket fences and American flags everywhere. So that's just the city that I grew up in. So at that time, it felt very. I mean, the divisions in American society are super drawn in, super clear cut, unfortunately. But that's what we deal with as Americans, right? Going back to Americanisms, right?
Yeah.
The apple pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, so there's a lot to deal with being American, period. And growing up as a non-American, whatever that is, because if you're brown, or black or whatever, if you don't fit a certain narrative of a certain group of people in the United States, in America, then you're not of it. So contending with that puts you on the fringes automatically. So anyways, that was a lot for me to deal with. It was a lot for me to deal with coming from a household that was very loving. I came from a very loving household. My mom is from Cartagena, Colombia, from the Caribbean. All very vibrant woman. Mama's super vibrant, super. We dance salsa in the house every day. You know what I mean? Like since we were kids. So going to school was just like, you guys are dry as fuck. What the fuck is happening here? There's no love here. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what's fueled me. Period. Like,
Yeah.
like just like contending with my environment, but also being like inside, like full of love. I'm fucking lucky. My mom was super loving always. And my dad. My dad's super sweet.
Do you find that monotonous activities? A lot of songwriters tell me that they get a lot of ideas through repetitive motions, whether it's walking, running, gardening, things like that, that this kind of repetitive motions, that monotonous routines are good sources of inspiration because they can think about songs, but they're still on the move. So do you ever think about that? Like, I guess, do you ever use, you mentioned being outside in nature, but sitting, but do any repetitive kind of motions ever inspire you?
Yeah, all the time. Like just running, just going for runs, or I like to longboard. I don't say I skate because then all the skaters get mad because I can't do a trick. But I like to take hills and stuff like that, and just I cover a lot of ground with the longboard. So yeah, just moving around. You're getting that, you're getting the juices flowing, right? So it really just gets the juices flowing in every sense.
Yeah, and you find that's a lot of song ideas come to you when you're on those and longboarding or running or things like that.
Yeah, totally, all the time.
Yeah.
Like I'll go for a run before I go into the studio. Like last summer, I was doing that. I would run, and then I would jump in the studio because I'm gonna be sitting all day. So
Mm-hmm.
that would just get me moving. It really would. I would get back in the studio and I'm in it. Get a guitar, pick up an instrument. Start do a vocal take. I always want to make music. I always want to be creative. So I'm always like, there's something always pulling me towards that.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it in where I could fit it in. That's pretty much it.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. Don't forget, you can find all of my interviews with over 200 songwriters on my Songwriters on Process website at songwritersonprocess.com, going all the way back to 2010. You can read them, watch them, or listen to them. So until next time, thanks for listening.